Right, so now we're going in and we're going to start to do the same thing that we did to the hair, on the head, to the beard. So we're toning it. We're getting one shade of gray on that beard, and then we're going to get the value. And you can see I'm still sticking with my diagonal stroke. I'm trying to cover it quickly, but trying to make sure that I don't have any gaps in my shading. You do want to make sure that you do get the beard darker than the skin tone. So right now it's really comparable, so I'm going to be darkening that up in a bit. And it is okay for it to be not quite dark enough at this stage, but then just make sure you go back in and darken it. And at first it's going to look kind of like a flat mass, and that's okay, it's supposed to. Then we'll layer on top and get some more of the values correct. So lights, darks, mediums in there. Make it look more normal. So there's my overall beard shape. It's going to look more like a beard as soon as I get some more values in there. That lower lip there does need to have some dark values on it too, although the beard itself will be darker than the lower lip. So the lower lip is going to be in shadow. Normally the upper lip isn't kind of in shadow, but the lower lip in this one is going to be in shadow because the mustache is blocking the light, so it will be in shadow. So here I go with looks like a 6B. You could probably try doing it with a 4B too if you're worried about going too dark. And I'm starting to block in the values. It's a little bit darker at the chin. There's a little bit of a cast shadow from the nose onto the mustache itself. And I don't want this to look too much like stripes, so I'm making sure that the edges of the value is kind of soft, because you don't want it to look like he's got stripes in his goatee. We're going to blend that in. So here I'm making sure that the beard is darker than the skin tone. Getting a few of those stray hairs in there. But really we're still intent on kind of massing out the shape, the form here, and not so much on making it look like individual hairs. I told you this would be fun. It's fun applying facial hair because it's kind of a challenge. It's unusual. You have to get texture on there. So that's pretty much the value pattern there on the beard. Okay, now I've moved it down so you can see that here's what's happening to the hair. we're going to start to get the value in the hair. Just like we did in the beard, we got some darks, some mediums, some lights. You're going to do that on the hair too. So the hair is going to be kind of following the same pattern as the shadow that's on the neck. Also same pattern or similar to what's on the forehead. So it's going to start off darker on the left side and kind of fade out a little bit as it goes to the right. And then as it ends on the right side, it goes back a little bit to a medium gray. And here's where I'm getting a tiny bit of the texture of hair right along the hairline. Remember, there's some wispy hairs there. Even on a guy, there's going to be a few stray hairs there. So it won't end up looking like a wig that's just slapped on some guy's head. And again, I'm using a darker pencil, so 4B or a 6B would be appropriate here. And I am starting to consider the direction of the hair when I'm applying the value. I'm trying to go in the direction that the hair is going to go in, which is kind of curving around the scalp. And then as it goes to the back of the head, it's kind of curving down, kind of following the direction of the back of the ear. You can kind of see it happening there. So just working on getting it dark there, medium dark, kind of dark, and then transitioning it using a gradient. And then when you think about hair, especially hair that's this hair is about like 2-3 inches long, the way it lays down on the top of the head is kind of like a field of grass. There's clumps, there's shadows in those clumps, and you want it to look natural, so you just have to watch where you put the values, where you put the shadows. You don't want it ending up looking like spaghetti hair. You want it to have that texture of hair. So there are shadow areas. And you can see it's taking me a long time to build up. That's a large surface there. That's a lot of the head. It's just hair. Way more than on our last drawing. Especially with the added facial hair. You got a lot to do. So those are patches of value to denote where the hair is sinking down, where other hair is sticking up. Remember, anything that kind of sinks down, or if there's a shadow cast, it will create a pocket of dark, of shadow. Anything that pops out might be highlighted, might have a highlight on it. There's a couple of those feathery hairs at the temple. Getting some on the sideburns as well. Getting that texture of hair. Starting to put that in. And we're putting it in loosely. And I was experimenting with this drawing, trying to use a little bit of mechanical pencil as well. So you'll see, like, I'm going to switch between them. You could also experiment with blending, using that blending stump. So once you get the values, you can blend it, or you could even blend it at the toning level. Okay, so I'm going back in and darkening up some areas. Behind the ear, it's pretty dark. There's a shadow cast behind the ear because the ear itself is blocking the light. Going in, darkening up some stuff. Again, just loosely at this point, getting the texture. And that's when I'm switching to the mechanical pencil. You can try it too. I was just playing with it, seeing if I could get that texture of hair a little bit better. And I don't draw every single hair, and I'm not as meticulous as those hyper realist artists that you saw the other day. But you should suggest the texture of it. And you do that by kind of simplifying the hair structure, having some of the hair crossing over. Again, kind of thinking of a field of grass where the grass is kind of falling over. So you're just implying that texture of hair, not necessarily drawing every single hair follicle that's on that head. And again, the direction of the hair is important. So pretty much at the back of the head is where it starts to get pretty light. So dark, and then there's some midtones in between there. And then as it goes to the right, as the head turns to the right, it's lighter. That means your line for the hair should also be a little bit lighter too. So once you have the hair the way you want it, you can also experiment with pulling out graphite. So taking your eraser and erasing out some highlights and then kind of drawing back over them. I play with that too a little bit. Getting some flyaway hairs there, making it look a little bit more natural. So here's where I'm working in a little bit of eraser. I'm taking that nice kneaded eraser, but I'm also using the pink eraser and a little bit of a white eraser to get some of the highlights to kind of pull those out from that dark gray. And then I kind of go back over those highlights and make them blend in. A little bit more of the hair on the back of the head. So once you get the hair texture on there, you can move on to working on the beard texture. And the beard texture is very similar to the hair. It's curvy kind of lines. You still want to keep to that same shadow pattern though.